And that's on. Okay. So we thought it'd be kind of fun to sort of pick your brain and talk about marketing and advertising with regard to sports, because we are a sports and business show. Is that good? Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. I'm sure Mike will have some good questions for you.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. Let's start this off here. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, your host, and my co-host fill-in, Mike Zaidlin. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Okay, and on the phone we have Bob Dorfman from Baker Street Advertising. Bob, welcome to Sports Econ 101.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, just right off the bat, is flamboyant players versus calm ones, like flamboyant, explosive, that sort of thing, and how their marketability is affected. Like someone like, let's say, Kawhi Leonard, who's really kind of calm, who's a great basketball player. The marketability of him being, the face of Coke or something like that, compared to someone like, Matt Barnes, who's a real explosive NBA player.
Yeah, Matt Barnes is a bad example.
Yeah, well, for that exact
There's
reason.
a lot of other stuff going for him on the negative side.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the quiet guys don't get the deal. You can look at Kawhi Leonard. You can look at Tim Duncan, who's another a guy with championships. I have a little, kind of a little formula I use. I call it the 5 Ps, and that's sort of how I determine who's marketable, who's not. And it starts with performance. Obviously, you have to win championships. You have to be at the top of your game in any sport. But next comes personality, and if you kind of don't have that, if you don't have the charisma, if you don't have the camera likability, if it really doesn't come through, if you're not a Draymond Green type, or just anybody who is comfortable on camera and can deliver a line and feels comfortable holding a product and trying to sell it, if you can't do that, you're probably not going to get many deals.
And also how well spoken you are.
Yeah. That's another kind of good example of that was Jerry Rice, going back a while, but he used to be really bad at just speaking, just never very good on camera, never very comfortable, and really developed it, and became very good and very comfortable on camera, and he's still a marketable guy right now.
Well, do you remember? That's interesting, because I was thinking years ago. Do you remember Lester Hayes from Oakland? Apparently, he had a stuttering problem that was so bad that it was hard to interview him, and so he ended up taking voice lessons, so to speak, and so he wasn't quite marketable per se, but at least he could handle an interview.
Yeah, obviously that's part of the marketability of an athlete is you've got cameras in front of you after every game. Either you're good at it, you're not good at it, and if you're not good at it, either you're willing to work at it and become better at it, or you're just it's just not going to be, your personality's not going to come through on camera, and you're not going to get those kind of extra deals in addition to your regular paycheck.
Bob, along the lines of what Edward was saying about personality, it seems that with the Giants, you've really got a nice blend of very colorful players like Hunter Pence, where you can go out and make a short, like the speech, which I think was really impressive, and then quieter players, Buster Posey, although I don't know that he's necessarily quiet, he's just not as obviously as crazy as Hunter Pence.
Yeah, but he has done some of those commercials for the car.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, our agency works with the Giants, so I've had a little experience working with some of the players, and they all are, almost all of them are really good on camera. Buster's interesting because he's just a little more guarded in how he comes off, and he's very careful about his personality and what he says, what he doesn't say. Very concerned about, not swearing. He knows that there's a lot of kids that are big fans of his. But when you ask him to do something a little weird, he'll do it. Sometimes there, people around him are maybe a little reluctant to ask him to do stuff. But generally, as long as it's not, a questionable taste, he's perfectly willing to have some fun, do some fun stuff.
And how much do these guys get paid for different commercials? Like some guys you see on TV, they're literally on for 2 seconds, and they might even not even have any lines.
Yeah, that it varies significantly depending on the company, the size of the market you're dealing with, whether it's a local deal, whether it's a national deal, how long the spot's going to be on the air, how many spots you're doing, how much time you're spending. Some of the deals are well into 7 figures, obviously, but some of them are are considerably smaller, and it may be just you do this car deal for us, and you can we'll give you a free lease for 3 years and another $100,000. So it really depends and it depends on the player too as well.
Bob, how do you or how does Baker Street measure the success of, say, the Giants campaigns each year? Is it based on ticket sales? Is it based on merchandise? And how it must be difficult because to some degree it depends on the success of the team.
Yeah, obviously, winning cures everything.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of it is generally sellouts, and they consistently, they're well over 400 in a row sellouts, and then it becomes, how long's the waiting list for season tickets? But generally, it comes down to ticket sales, and as long as you're selling out every game, you're successful.
And you had only given us 2 of the P's. What were the other P's?
Oh, the other P's are purity.
Okay.
We can talk about Laramie Tunsil, who was just was drafted in the NFL, the offensive tackle, who was probably going to go in the first 5 picks, and then was revealed like 10 minutes before draft time that there was this photo of him on social media of him with a marijuana gas mask on or something.
Oh, yeah, bong or something.
Yeah, and he dropped, picks. He went off the board with guys.
Wow.
With teams. He dropped down to 13th or 14th pick, and they estimate that it cost him, $8 million in salary just in signing.
That's so. That they got it. I'm sure coaches tell the kids this, but in college that you got to watch all that stuff. That stuff stays on. Now it stays on forever.
Yeah, well, with social media the way it is now, you can't do anything without somebody taking a picture of it and posting it.
Yep.
So you have to be really, really careful, particularly if you're just starting out. You haven't established yourself. You're under a microscope all the time, and those kind of things cost you dearly.
Yeah, look what's going on with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's another Ryan Leaf story.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's been dropped by his agent. So the agent who's usually the last guy to give up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that doesn't look like it's going to have happy.
Bob,
So that's purity. Then moving on the list, poignancy. There's kind of what kind of backstory do you have? Is it something that's marketable? Is it a rags to riches story? Did you come from a hard scrabble life and work your way up? You have some interesting thing going on that happened to you. Any of those kind of things add to your story and makes it more interesting.
And then when you have a name like Curry and you do for Thai food, that really kind of helps. Okay, so, Bob, stay with us. We're going to cut to our first commercial break here, and it's awesome that we have Mike Zadlin in the studio here because the theme is losing World Series managers, and Mike is a huge baseball fan, so we're going to see if he answers some of these. And Bob, if you know the answer, don't answer yet. Wait till we come back from break. But here's our first trivia question. Who was the unfortunate manager of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox team? They were called the White Sox, but they coined the term Black Sox because of the scandal. The first email with the correct answer is going to win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Who was the unfortunate manager of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox scandal? And when we come back, I know Mike Zadlin, he's got a smile. Son of a gun, if he knows this one, I'm going to be very impressed. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. I'll bet you know that one.
Do you want me to say the answer?
No, don't say it now.
All right.
Bob, do you know the answer?
I do not.
All right.
I don't know if I do or not.
I mean, I tried to not trick them, but I tried to come up with questions before. I came up with these questions before I knew you were going to be on. And I remember there were some questions that I just couldn't put past this young man here.
Yeah, I'm 58.
Yeah, it's still young.
Bob, I was just curious about how do you get involved, or does Baker Street get involved in decisions such as like the letting go of Tim Lincecum? I mean, from a PR point of view, is that in any way does that touch upon?
Can we ask that on the
Yeah,
on
I
We're
just
not on
wanted
air
to know
yet.
if it was an appropriate question.
Yeah, that's a fair question to ask, but yeah, let's do it on the air.
Sure. Okay. I appreciate you being with us, Bob.
Sure.
We always have a lot of fun here. We're always very nice to our guests.
If not our co-hosts.
Yes, the same thing exactly.
Then I'd like a 3-night
Two-night stay. You got to answer the question. You'll be the first email.
So would I.
All right.
I'm sitting here at my computer, so it's not fair. I can look it up.
That's true. That's true. This is really for our listeners. Okay, here we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, and our fill-in guest host, Mike Zaidlin. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this question about losing World Series managers. And here was the first question. Who was the unfortunate manager of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox team? Mike Zaidlin, what's the answer?
I think it's Kid Gleason.
It is Kid Gleason. Yeah, he's an animal. I tell you, that's pretty good. Because Kid Gleason, gosh, you're going back to the not early 1800s, but I mean the early part of baseball for him. Not bad at all.
I know. Saw it in a fortune cookie yesterday. What can I say?
Yeah, that's right. And the next two questions are probably easier for you. Okay, we have on the phone Bob Dorfman from Baker Street Advertising, and I know that Mike had another question for you.
Yeah, Bob, I just was curious. Sometimes, of course, some decisions that the Giants or other teams take have obviously a performance aspect and maybe a marketing and PR aspect. And one that just comes to mind is the decision over some period of time to let Tim Lincecum go, basically, but to do it in a very classy way, which the Giants obviously did, in recognition of his marketing, of his past deeds and his standing among Giants fans. And I was just wondering if Baker Street gets consulted on something like that. Do you broach into PR a little bit besides just marketing and advertising, or how does that work?
In terms of baseball decisions, we have nothing to do with baseball decisions. That's strictly the Giants brain trust. If they want to consider the PR aspect of it, whether they sign a player, whether they release a player, that's between them and their people. It might come down to us if they would say, we're releasing Tim Lincecum and we want to do some kind of interesting, farewell event for him. At that point, it's possible they may ask us for ideas or thoughts on ways we can promote that or market that.
And what's going to happen with Colin Kaepernick? Because he hasn't been for as long a ride as Tim Lincecum and doesn't have the World Series, i.e. Super Bowl, that he should have had. If I was a manager, I would have called a few less plays differently. But what about a guy like him?
Not. That's just the 49ers have just been a PR mess. So I don't know what you do there. They just haven't handled it very well. Again, at one point, he was so well loved here, and he hasn't necessarily been the smartest guy in terms of marketing himself either. Kind of bonehead thing. So, again, I think getting rid of him sooner rather than later would have been the smart move, and it just seems to have been lingering, unless Chip Kelly thinks that he can turn him back into another Super Bowl quarterback.
Bob, I was looking on Baker Street's Facebook site, and I was looking at the various videos. I think there are 17 of them that were produced as part of the We Are SF, We Are Giant campaign for 2016. And I think there is one with Denard Span, but not one with Johnny Cueto. Was that just a timing issue with
it's all availability.
I see.
We generally shoot the commercials the week before FanFest. And we try and plan on, using whoever is available who's planning on being in town, and if some players, for whatever reason, aren't in town, we have to, on the fly, change things around and work with whoever we've got.
There's a question I wanted to ask you, a little different. I wanted to get your take on this. So Luke Walton, the assistant coach of the Warriors, he agrees to coach the Lakers next year. But here's my issue with this. The Golden State Warriors are in the middle of the playoffs right now. Why do they have to announce? Why does anybody have to announce anything about Luke Walton why don't they wait until after the finals? Because, can you imagine being Iguodala or Curry or Green and then suddenly going, okay, I mean, one of our favorite assistant coaches here is no longer with us. And, he's still part of the team now, but he's going away next year.
Yeah, I guess it's just, while basketball's still top of mind, you want to keep the story going there. So while people are still paying attention to the sport, obviously for the Lakers, it pays off because there's nothing else to talk about right now.
So they blew the whistle.
Yeah, I would think so. Beyond that, I don't know, because it does seem to me that it would be some kind of a distraction for the team in the playoffs, and knowing that this guy's going to be leaving.
Yeah, I think in football it'd be extremely rare to see an assistant coach on a team in the playoffs going to sign with another team as the head coach before the playoffs were finished. And I don't ever remember it happening in any sport at any time like that. The season isn't even over, so it's very strange.
Yeah, good point. You've only done 3 of the P's. I
think I got
4.
Through 4. I got through poignancy, which is you got a good story to tell, and then the last one is perseverance, which is simply, are you willing to do the time that sponsors ask of you? And some players don't want to spend the time doing that. Particularly, you think of somebody like Tom Brady, who probably could be doing millions more in endorsement deals if he wanted to. And for a number of reasons, I think, turns down more deals than he accepts. And I think it is time consuming. Advertisers do ask. It's not just, a day or two shooting commercials. It's time with clients and salespeople and events and all of that. So that takes up time. And I think a lot of, for him, I think he likes being considered one of the guys. I don't think he wants to lord over everybody else on the team and
good point.
Be like he's this untouchable guy. He's just another player. So I think the more you do that, the more you kind of maybe set yourself apart, and maybe that's not necessarily being a team player or benefiting the team.
Bob, I was curious about something as a fan growing up in the 60s and 70s. I remember going to the concession stands at Candlestick, and there would be one cap style. It was black with orange SF. That was it. Now, if I go, I see 100 different designs and styles, and
not even the right colors.
Not even the right colors, and Dodger colors, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, is that something that is part of the advertising? Is that something that you and Baker Street are involved with, merchandise design, or is that a separate?
No, that's separate, and that's obviously you know what that is.
Yeah.
Once you buy your black cap, you're done.
Yeah.
But if you can buy one with camouflage on it, you can buy one for Irish Night, and it's got green SF on it. Again, obviously that's just to sell it, as much as you can. And Orange Fridays, there's just there's so many ways, and retro jerseys, and every league is doing that. And it's the merchandise business is humongous.
I gotta say, I do like the retro ones, as long as it's something not like the San Diego. Was it the San Diego Padres or the White Sox that had the shorts?
Well, the White Sox had
White Sox.
had an actual uniform for a whole season. I think it was in '77 where they wore shorts.
Shorts, yeah. I hate to be sliding.
It
I
wasn't
think
even
everyone's sliding first on that.
I don't think.
And I mean, and if you're lucky, like the Warriors, you've got the city logo, which is one of the the all-time favorite logos of all time, and they keep bringing that back in various iterations, and everybody loves that.
Well, and you get the Yankee pinstripes,
True.
Yeah.
I guess was it in the Chronicle where I was recently reading that the city logo was actually laughed at when it first came out, and only over time became a classic.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow,
Interesting.
Very cool.
Especially now that they're going to be moving back to the city.
Yeah.
It even makes more sense.
Are they going to change the name from Golden State?
I doubt it.
Yeah. And then, Bob, how did you get into the business? How did you get started?
I've been an ad guy like all my life. I went to school, majored in advertising, always knew I wanted to be a creative advertising guy, and kind of through clients got into some of the sports marketing side of it. I worked for the Oakland Athletics at a previous agency, Fox Sports, and Knockers Golf. So worked with some athletes here and there, and just kind of started writing something called the Sports Marketers Scouting Report. Actually started doing this for the Bay Bridge World Series, talking about the marketability of the Giants and the A's.
I love those hats, with the Bay series. Where they had half Giants and half A's. I thought that was pretty cool. You don't see those anymore.
Bob, do you work with other sports clients currently besides the Giants?
Mostly just the Giants right now. We also do some work with University of San Francisco, their athletic department.
And do you have a non-compete clause for the Dodgers?
Yeah, we can't work with the Dodgers, and we never would.
just out of spite. So, Bob, I don't know if you can stay with us. We're going to have to cut to another commercial break. You let us know if you can stay with us for a little bit longer. But we are going to cut to our second commercial break. And again, the theme is losing World Series managers. Now, Mike is so good at this that he knows that.
Stop it.
Okay, so the question.
I'm blushing here on the radio.
Yes, that's right. So the question I was going to ask was, who was the manager for the 1986, quote, Bill Buckner Red Sox team, losers to the New York Mets in that season's World Series? Now, Mike thinks I'm going to ask that question, but my question is, of that manager, who was his third-grade math teacher? That's the question. No, I'm just kidding. I figured I have to kind of stump Mike.
I don't think he finished third grade.
Oh. Well, Sam would be very. Oh, I started letting it out. Okay. So again, here's the question: who was the manager for the 1986 quote Bill Buckner Red Sox team, losers to the New York Mets in that season's World Series? I know Mike knows the answer to this one. I'm sure Bob does too. Okay, and stay with us. You're listening. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. All right. All right. Who's the answer, Mike?
It's Daryl Johnson or Don Zimmer, isn't it?
You're just gonna have to pick one of them.
I don't know. Bob, any thoughts?
I have no thoughts.
I have no thoughts. I like that. I like that one. I have no
You're on
thoughts.
your own.
No, I knew you were so thoughtless.
Okay, Bob. I don't know how much time what your schedule is like.
I can do one more segment.
Oh, perfect. That's all we need you for.
All right.
Okay. What do you want to? Anything you'd like to hear? Get out of this interview? I mean, anything we can promote for you?
Well, we talked about the Giants. Nothing. I got really nothing.
Bryce Harper's deal? Who knows?
Nothing else. We can talk about Under Armour and how well they're doing.
Okay.
They're on a roll. So.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I guess we try to hit all the sports stuff, but it's just making for good radio. That's all we care about. All right, and away. Okay, set here and away we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike Zadlin, our co-host, filling in for Bruce McGowan. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question about losing World Series managers. Who was the manager for the 1986 Red Sox team, featuring the famous Bill Buckner going through the legs, losers to the New York Mets in that season's World Series? And Mike, you think you know?
No, I'll guess Don Zimmer.
No.
Well,
Now, the funny thing is, you know Kid Gleason from 1919, but you don't know 1986.
well, you know, I have short-term memory problems, and my
Yeah, exactly.
long-term memory is fantastic. Come on.
No, it's John McNamara.
Oh.
Okay. So we have on the line still, he was able to stay with us because he's having so much fun with us, Bob Dorfman from Baker Street Advertising. All right. Mike, you want to ask him a question?
No.
No?
I think
No,
I
you
didn't have a question
no,
off the top of my head.
No, but you had, okay, we were talking off the air about like Under Armour and those kind of deals. Bob, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the hottest athletic brand right now, going, and it has to be Under Armour. They just signed Bryce Harper to an extension, which is supposedly the biggest deal for a Major League Baseball player ever. They've got Steph Curry. They've got Jordan Spieth. They've got Cam Newton. They've got Michael Phelps.
Well, they're covering all the sports.
And it's really interesting because Nike has always been the guys who have had the number one player in every sport. They've kind of made a point of signing whoever is the top guy in each sport.
And which player did they get for curling? Which player did they get for curling?
For curling, that's a good question.
That's a good question. Okay, I'm not sure about that. All right.
I'll make that your next trivia question.
Yeah.
But Under Armour, and at this point, they're still their revenues are still maybe a tenth, I think, of what Nike's are. But they're really making a play for all the big guys. They've got the big NBA guy. If you believe that Steph Curry is going to take over from LeBron James, and it sure seems like it in terms of who's the hottest player in the NBA. Golf, there's really no question, is Jordan Spieth, notwithstanding his Masters.
Yeah. He's also, a lot of these guys when they're good looking, like Tom Brady and Jordan Spieth, that's definitely going to add a little bit of flair.
Yeah. And again, these are all young guys who have, big futures. Bryce Harper, everybody talks about him being the future of baseball, and he's really kind of become the mouthpiece for the young baseball fan, talking about trying to make the game more exciting.
What about Mike Trout, though? I mean, he's, I know he's in the American League, so we have to discount that a little bit, but, he pretty clean cut and, great baseball.
Yeah,
baseball
maybe too clean cut. Maybe what baseball needs is somebody with a little more attitude.
Like Yasiel Puig also. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, particularly the young fans, I think, to keep them interested in the game, I think maybe they need somebody who's a little cooler, a little hipper, and I think maybe Bryce Harper fits that bill a little better than Mike Trout.
Bob, you mentioned the 5 P's, and one of the P's was purity, and I'm wondering, how does someone like Lance Armstrong, who's fallen so far, is it even feasible at any point in time, or someone like that to get back into the
back
5
on the
P's?
horse.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Unless you're still competing, and unless you're maybe a Michael Vick or something who does the time, comes back, plays, does well, wins again.
Yeah.
But here's the most important question: does O.J. Simpson have a future?
Pretty doubtful.
Pretty doubtful.
It's interesting. Alex Rodriguez just signed a deal.
Wow.
An ad deal. I think his first deal ever since he was got the PED thing happening. So
good point.
If it's again, it depends on the how extreme you misbehave.
Sure.
But generally, you have to come back. We love to put our stars on pedestals, knock them down, and bring them back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that cycle.
I don't like knocking them down. I mean, go ahead. I know what you mean.
Let's take maybe a less egregious example. Mark McGwire coming back as the Cardinals batting coach some years ago, and now Barry Bonds sort of following in a similar path. I mean, clearly they have very little to gain other than to maybe eventually get in the Hall of Fame. I think Mark McGwire probably will never get in, but Barry Bonds will. And I'm sure part of it is just, cozying up to the press a little bit and just putting on a good face and showing the public that you're not a bad guy in Barry's case and maybe in Mark's case too. I'm not sure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Barry's obviously Barry's biggest problem was that he was kind of a jerk, and never terribly liked by the media. And
Sure.
so I think he was certainly liked by Bay Area fans.
Yeah.
And again, particularly with baseball players, it's always hard because it's a very regional sport. So everybody likes them here. Nobody likes them anywhere else in the country.
Right.
Even in Pittsburgh, where he started?
Especially in Pittsburgh.
Especially after, yeah, that's a good point. Someone like Pete Rose, gosh, what's he going to have to do to overcome?
But it seems like a very smart kind of a PR move to kind of get back in the good graces, considering he didn't do wasn't as nearly as egregious as Lance Armstrong's defense and attacking of other people. So he has, I think, a less of a distance to travel to get back, and I think a lot of it's just geared to eventually getting in the Hall of Fame and just showing a good face for a couple months in a season.
Well, someone I was going to point out who's not a Hall of Famer, a decent pitcher, but it's interesting. A lot of people forget Andy Pettitte, right? And why? Because he admitted it right away. A lot of these guys, who like Rafael Palmeiro, shaking his finger, no, I never did that. Whereas, Pettitte says, yeah, you know what, I did it, I'm sorry. And then people are like, oh, okay. Those are very forgiving.
Yeah, well, and it helps if you're not breaking a home run record in the process, and you're just,
That's true.
just winning being a good pitcher.
That's a good point. Good point.
So.
All right.
Even Pete Rose has been, doing some commercials. So,
yeah.
And back on TV as a color guy, not a very terrible job doing it, but so he's been somewhat forgiven, I guess.
What's your opinion about him being in the Hall of Fame, if you want to share it with us?
Well, I agree with the people that say that the Hall of Fame is more of an educational thing, and that put him in, whether you put something, an asterisk under his pedestal that says what he's done and that he betted on the sport and all that. But I say put him in. I would put Bonds in. I would put McGuire in. I'm one who believes that my athletes should be superstars and supermen, and I want to see them hit monstrous home runs and do abnormal things that being just.
I agree, because to me the Hall of Fame is the best players. Everybody hated Ty Cobb and Rogers Hornsby, but they were great baseball players. Now, we don't know what they did outside. There's a lot of, the press nowadays with social media and all that stuff knows a lot more than they did back then. They could have hit a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Bob, getting back to Pete Rose for a second, obviously he was, accused of gambling or not convicted, but just, high likelihood. And yet today we see Major League Baseball and the NFL, and I'm not sure about pro basketball, teaming up with FanDuel and DraftKings and really blurring the line between, stay away from gambling and sports and all that. And yet now you've got partnerships with what are very, you could certainly make a good argument these are gambling enterprises.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
You're absolutely right. ESPN is bankrolling FanDuel or one of the DraftKings or one of those. It's very blurred.
Well, I'm sure there's no impropriety going on, and I would bet on it.
I'll lay 8-5.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see how much fantasy sports has
oh my gosh,
ruled the sports business like crazy. So no, they're not going to step away from that. It's really brought new life to the sport and definitely brought a whole bunch of money in.
Follow the money trail, right?
Yep.
Wow. Now, Bob, you also, I was looking on your website, you also represent Honda. Now, is it the Honda Center or Honda just the company itself? I mean, how does that...
We represent a couple of the dealer groups. We represent the Northern California dealer group. So we do most of their regional advertising in Northern California.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Bob, thank Dorfman from Baker Street Advertising. Thank you so much for joining us and spending all this time with us on Sports Econ 101.
Happy to do it. It's fun.
Okay,
Thanks,
we'll
Bob.
have you back. Okay.
Bye.
That was Bob Dorfman from Baker Street Advertising, kind of a major advertiser for the working with the San Francisco Giants. like that interview.
Yeah.
Good
A
stuff.
lot of good topics.
Good. So, Mike, before we cut to break, anything specific you want to talk about?
No,
I mean,
I think we've covered all the good stuff.
Well, we covered all the advertising.
We didn't leave anything on the field today.
No. So a little bit of sports part, not the business side of it, but Curry. Now this is airing Saturday. We're recording the show on Thursday, so by the time this airs, what time is the game on Saturday?
That's a good question.
I think well, they're playing in Portland, so it's the same time zone. But I think maybe it is an afternoon game, so this will be going on at the same time. But I think he's supposed to be.
Well, hopefully they won't cut into our ratings.
Yeah. Well, of course, now we are a national show, so there's some companies that are playing, or some stations that are going to be all over the place. Sometimes we'll play on a Tuesday.
Hopefully they'll hold their own.
Yeah, and do you see some of those shots made?
Yeah,
they're just incredible. I was thinking of come on, who was the one who hit it at the buzzer? And then they went into overtime.
Oh, that was incredible. I can't remember, but that was just
the Toronto
fantastic
yeah.
job.
And then they just totally blow it for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Dwayne Wade going, come on guys, just get in there. What are you doing?
All you need to do is make a layup.
No. I know. I wonder when it goes in overtime. I wonder how many guys think about the one free throw they missed, or the one 3-pointer that was turned into a 2-pointer.
Well, that's what separates professionals from amateurs, is the ability to focus.
And just kind of put that out of your mind.
Sure they don't even think about it at all.
Really?
Or if they do, it's compartmentalized. Absolutely. I don't think you could survive as a professional if you had that much conflict.
Well, that's why sometimes
missed and screwed up, especially during the game. After the game, maybe you would be willing to think about it a little bit. During the game, the adrenaline's flowing. And,
or even some guys who have domestic problems. They come to work with, so to speak, coming to work with the problems, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Compartmentalization is always a big help.
All right, so we're going to go to our last commercial break trivia question. Again, the theme is losing World Series managers. I actually thought you were going to get the last one, but that's okay. You're 1 for 2.
Forgot about McNamara.
Okay, so there was a losing manager named Luke Sewell. You already know the answer?
I know who he is, but I don't know the question.
Okay.
I can't know the answer.
But I'm afraid to give you the year because you might know it. But he was American League champion manager. Which team did he lead to the World Series berth? So he was on the losing end as a manager. I'll bet you if I give you the year that you'll know. But I'm not going to do that. I will
give me the decade.
I give you the decade. It was in the 1900s.
1900s?
I mean, yeah, not 19th century, 1900s. So it wasn't in 2000s, and it wasn't 1800s because there was no World Series in the 1800s. So anywhere between 1900 and 1999.
That's a century.
I know.
Not a decade.
Oh.
I asked you for the decade. Thanks. I figured it was probably during the 20th century. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, stay with us. By that time, I'll
help
go back
me out
to school.
here, fans. This guy's being tough on me.
Oh, don't worry. Sports with Econ will be right back. We'll have the answer to that one. That's right. You did say decade, didn't you?
God. I'm not telling you it was during the millennium.
Whoa,
that's
when
a
we
clue.
come back. When we come
All
back,
right,
say
Mike,
that.
I'll tell you, it was the 20th century. Well, that only narrows it down. Oh my God! Wow. Thank you.
I tell you, 6 years of high school. I don't know. That's what
Oh
See,
yeah.
that's what makes for good radio, though.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Oh, that's
funny.
funny. I thought that was a good show.
It was very good. You're very good, Mike.
Well, I like to do research and try not to ask offensive questions, but ask. And he was also very willing to give his opinions.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was surprised.
I
I thought he was going to say, "I don't want to say about."
Well, Barry was great. Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. No,
But
he was
you
honest.
and I are in agreement. Mark McGwire is not. He's not a Hall of Famer. I don't care how many home runs he got.
No.
You forget the steroids.
Yeah. I mean, I love that Barry's a batting coach. I think that's awesome.
Me too.
Because you know what? It's work. You got to travel. You got to be there.
Oh, yeah.
He's rich. He doesn't need this. He's 51. He is willing to get out there in the heat in Miami and slough around with young players who he knows can't do what he ever said, and he's sticking it out.
Well,
that is character.
It is.
That's a guy saying, I really do want to be in the Hall of Fame, and I want to put on a decent face here, and I also just want to help players.
Well, we went to the game. We were invited by Wells Fargo to go to the game when they played Miami here, and we gave Barry a rounding standing ovation.
Was it the
great.
first night?
Yeah.
Friday night?
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to go to that.
Yeah.
Because I saw him in his last game in 2007.
Oh wow.
I was in left field, sitting right there.
Oh.
He was not looking good, but I love Barry. He was a great
Yeah,
player, even though he's a difficult person. But. All right, wait a minute. Let's see.
All right, you ready? This is a short one. It's only 2 minutes 30 seconds. So we got to be fast on this one. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mike Zalin. I'll tell you, I'm still laughing over this one because you did say
Glad
decade.
you thought it was funny.
Yeah. Okay. Luke Sewell was the American League champion manager. He lost the World Series. He was a losing manager. And you asked me what decade, and I said it was in the 1900s. Okay, this is better. How about this? It happened in the 20th century. Is that the decade? I'm telling you, 6 years of high school didn't teach me much. Okay, no, it was in the 1940s. And the answer? Who was the manager?
I think he might have been managing
I'll tell you.
the St. Louis Browns in
Yes.
1944.
Yes, that's why I didn't say 1944, because I knew you'd know the answer. I was going to give you the millennium, and say it was in between the year 1000 and 2000. I figured that would be a good hint for you. All right, so we are going to cut out here. Thank you again, Mike, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Anytime you
having
want to fill in for Bruce, you did a great job.
Thank you.
We will have Bruce back, though. Okay, so here's our thoughts for the day. Leo DeRocher, remember Leo the Lip?
Sure, another manager,
said, I never questioned the integrity of an umpire. Their eyesight, yes. So don't trust in their integrity, but their eyesight, yes. And if you don't win, you're going to be fired. If you do win, you've only put off the day you're going to be fired.
Profound wisdom.
Very, very profound. All right, so next week, Bruce McGowan will be back with us. And Mike, again, anytime. We'd love to have you on.
I'll be there in reserve.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective. We're also going to be giving away some more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. Before we cut out, we've got literally about 20 seconds. What do you want to say to the audience on your way out?
It's been a great baseball season, I have to say.
2016. You got it's a Giants year. It's an even year.
Well, you know what? People don't really realize just how difficult it is to win, and even when you're good.
You got a 50-50 chance. You can win or lose.
Did you know that in the last 20 years, only 30% of all the teams that ever had the best record during the season won the World Series? That's how hard it is.
Wow. Good.
That's how hard it is.
Well,
just to get through the playoffs,
games, yeah.
even when you're the best team.
Yeah, and with all the potential injuries and all that.
That's it.
All right, so thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week. So long. Excellent, my friend.
Come on, I'm better than Larry King.
You are better.
That's on
Larry
1 hour.
King.
Larry King. I know, he's terrible. Yeah, anytime, Edward. I always